So the police service have in their custody 2 people who will be charged with some issues that have to do with the scam that saw some over 200 people get into some police training schools across the country with fake recruitment letters. Let's listen to the police service.
If you look at the enlistment letter, they all have the same serial number. How can that happen? You are writing letters in a file, 1, 2 to letter 20, and all is one. Then you do reference number. We brought everything to bear, but still people fall victims. There's a meticulous way of ensuring that there's enlistment. Before they go there, the CEOs are aware that this number of people are coming. If you take such document, you don't cross-check and you report, we will no more see you as a victim, but as a suspect for carrying or possessing forged document. Then the onus lies on you to prove fair. If you can't, then you are an accomplice who can push you with the law. In order to stop that ritual, so we want you to send a message now. Anybody who will be carrying that forge is to cross-check. If he doesn't, I'm sure none of them have gone for medical checkup. Some of them maybe you go be ages over and above. And we are not taking graduates, but they say graduates are there. They've taken their money. So how can you go for employment in a police organization? Then the first time you see police structure and police people is when you are reporting. And you agree to that document and a photocopy, of course, and buy your things according to the prospect and report. And that is the first time you are seeing the institution and police people. Police enlistment start from the interaction with the police, start immediately after the advert. You go through a lot of processes, ending up to getting your letter personally and to report for training. We spared them as victims, now we are going to pick them as suspects. It's getting enlistment like selling granules or kuli on the road. You just pay money, then they will write your name and give you. Is that what happens? If you want to travel, you need a passport, you need a visa, you need a plane ticket before you travel. At times they say some medical yellow fever, and if you don't get it, you don't go. So to get people into police is quite meticulous. We won't say it's cumbersome. They should exercise patience for it. Look at even we go to all the regions in order to ensure regional balance. All the 10 capitals of the 10 regions, so that people everywhere can get access. And it's qualifying and not competitive. Asha, is it a police? Why is it that you pay money to her in order to get recruited? At the end of the day, look at the number. Have they gone through the recruitment? We have 2,000 and plus people at all the depots. Because it's genuine, they are there. If it's not genuine, you will never get there.
Well, the police service says it's not a cumbersome process and that you need to go through. But let's try and make some sense out of this whole thing. Dr. Emmanuel Kwesienin is the head of research of the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Center and a security analyst. He's joined me on phone. Dr. Enin, grateful to have you tonight.
Well, it's a pleasure.
The police service, from what we're getting, is angry because it thinks that the persons involved have allowed themselves to be duped. We should take them for it?
Well, I mean, there are multiple sides to this issue. Yes, to seek to pay bribes to get employment, I don't think it's a legal process. But you see, we cannot also overlook the fact that bribery and corruption are problems in this country, particularly in a situation where jobs are few and far in between. You see, nevertheless, I don't think where we should focus our energies should relate more to these individuals who have been conned and paid bribes. I think what we should be focusing on in terms of the hierarchy of concerns right now should be how could this have happened over a certain period nationwide and we didn't find out. what does it say in terms of our preparedness to be able to understand and to respond to the changing nature of crime? Third is that we need to accept and to recognize that what has happened to the police service can happen to any other institution in this country.
Right.
Crime has transformed so radically over the past decade in terms of its ability to form groups, to use technology, to undermine and to infiltrate public sector institutions and critical infrastructures. That you see, while it's easy to critique the police, I think we should see what this is. That this is a much bigger challenge to this whole country. And therefore, even as we discuss the police, we should be asking ourselves the counterfactuals. Okay, how do we respond to these new kinds of criminal engagement? Because this is very serious. And more institutions and more organizations in this country will face this. So, in discussing this with the police, we should be looking more at the preventive side. How do we ensure that we can prevent, equip, retool, and enhance the police service and other institutions to prevent these kinds of crimes and infiltration?
So, Doc, you simply saying that we cannot, or we simply cannot absolve the police service of any wrongdoing in this situation?
I think the word wrongdoing is way too strong. Okay, certainly the service has questions to answer. But as to how a crime of such nationwide scale could go on and actually have to come reach where it reached before there was an intervention of sorts. All I'm saying is that as they are questioned by the Parliamentary Defense Committee, probably by the National Security Council, and then by the Police Council, what should be at the forefront of those who engage the police service is not so much to lay blame. Of course, I mean, the service is very embarrassed by this. There's no doubt about it. But we shouldn't be apportioning blame here and now. We should say, look, we are under threat as a nation. Our institutions can be infiltrated. They can be undermined. It creates perceptions of fear and perceptions of an inability to protect us. How do we ensure that we can recreate trust, we can create support infrastructures, we can retool, re-equip to ensure that critical institutions that are mandated to protect lives and property in this country can go about their work and go about it as competently as powerful. Look, it doesn't serve anybody's interest, okay, in discussing this case to undermine the credibility of Ghana Police Service. Far from it. You see, far from it. What we should do in the engagement is to say, how could this happen? Where are the gaps? How do we close it? And how do we move on from here to ensure that other institutions go through this?
So the people who got themselves involved in this are part of the problem. The police service are also part of the problem. But apart from that, what do you think the gaps are, as you said earlier?
Well, I mean, I'm not a police officer, and I don't work for the police service. All I do is to, analyze and put some, variables on the table.
Right.
But looking at what has happened, okay, what it shows is that the levels of forgery that took place, okay, the levels of confidence with which those who perpetrated this crime on these individuals was so sophisticated that none had the inkling to go and report.
Right.
But this is not the first time this has happened.
Exactly.
I think in 2012, a similar case did occur. Now, what it means, now if you also read the Tibiru report of 1986, that raises very critical concerns with forgery perpetrated against the police service. So it looks to me as if if we take a long-term historical view, okay, that there is something about the police service that makes it open to such infiltration. So that is certainly one of the gaps. How can the service ensure that it's difficult to forge its official documents and stamps and all those things? Okay. The other gap that I think this story shows, and I'm happy that much earlier on I had a conversation with the chair of the Parliamentary Defense Committee on Interior, and he is calling a meeting, I think tomorrow or the next couple of days, to ask some tough questions and to get some answers.
Right.
But I think it's important also that the Police Council also very quickly meets to say, how do we ensure that identifiable gaps and challenges faced by the service can be closed, so that the perceptual issues that have been raised by this particular case can be dealt with, so that the police can continue to play the role that has been assigned to it. Because look, whether we like it or not, the Ghana Police Service is the first point of call.
Right.
Okay, and we need to ensure that even when it faces the problem that it is facing now, that we can support them, that we can critique it when it's necessary, and we can provide it with the support, with the tools and equipment that it needs to get the job done.
The police service has gone through changes. We've seen them a bit more equipped now in terms of logistics that we see. We see more police visibility out there when you go into communities. Now, with what has happened, do we say that perhaps crime is getting more sophisticated and the police perhaps is being left behind as far as being able to deal with this kind of sophistication is concerned? Is that what we can say?
Well, partially. I mean, the crime has been changing over time. Unfortunately, the speed with which criminal networks and criminal gangs transform and change in response to both internal and external stimuli is considerably faster than a heavy, slow, bureaucratic institution, like the Ghana Police Service. Look, turning around the Ghana Police Service is like turning a ship in midstream. It's not easy, okay, because it's got its own institutional cultures. It's got, the usual bureaucratic infighting. It's got all the envies and the jealousies amongst, staff. So getting that coherent understanding of and response to emerging changing patterns of crime is much more difficult. But I can assure you that if you look at some of the structures being put in place right now, okay, the service is aware of the challenges out there. The question is, are we giving them the money and the tools to do the job? One is to see the vehicles or the so-called visibility. The question is that enough? Is that adequate in terms of responding to these challenges? And for example, cybercrime has become a big problem. Okay, the narcotics that we know is a big problem. Piracy is a big problem. So, unfortunately, the Ghana Police Service is a frontline institution, and as crime transforms and they play catch-up, they become a very easy target for criticism. All I'm pleading for is that, even as typical of the Ghanaian humor, maybe there might be a song or a phrase about this the next couple of days, that we take a couple of steps back and say, fine, let's make a little bit of fun, but how do we also support and help the service to be able to provide us with the protection that we need from them?
And so, Dr. Enin, finally, if you are making recommendation as to strengthening the police service, which of the areas would you suggest? Logistics or perhaps manpower training?
I think I will skip on that one. But certainly, I can make one or two recommendations. First, is that we need to provide, the cutting edge technology that the service needs.
Right.
That's number one. Number two, it's not just about the technology. It's about providing the professional skill sets that allows people to use that technology. But more importantly, is to build police community trust and better relations. Because look, if we take this particular case, there were these people live in communities. People knew they were paying bribes. People knew they were attempting to pass through the back door to get into the service, but nobody reported it. Okay, now that has even more wider implications. That has to be more wider implications for national security as a whole. So if people were committing more serious crimes and were plotting and planning, would people have refused to report it? Okay, so how do we build stronger, trusting, transparent, collaborative community police relations? I think that is where we should be heading to. Those are some of the tough questions that we should be asking ourselves.
Grateful. Dr. Emmanuel Kwesieni is the head of research, Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center, there, talking to me about the recruitment scam there. We're staying on the big one because an amount of 476 million Ghana cedis could not be accounted for by individuals or various ministries, departments and agencies, according to the latest Auditor General's report covering the year 2013. The report addressed to the Speaker of Parliament points to misapplication of funds by the MMDAs. The Auditor General is, however, warning the independence and integrity of his office is under threat due to poor funding by government. The poor funding means his outfit is unable to perform its mandates as expected. Auditor General Richard Quartey has said that out of the amount, 268 million cedis represents misapplication of funds for purposes other than those originally intended, while the rest could not be accounted for. Now, the report cited the failure by accounting officers to properly produce expenditure and payment vouchers. It also cited heads of department for supervising cash withdrawals without documentation, as well as excess budgetary expenditure without parliamentary approval. Now, according to the report, poor management practices and lack of probity is responsible for contract irregularities totaling 127 million citizens. They mentioned the Ghana Youth Employment and Entrepreneurial Agency, former GIDA, as one of those organizations involved in this. Quickly, let's speak to a member of Parliament's Public Accounts Committee, Ibrahim Day. Honorable, he's just joined me on phone. Honorable Day, grateful to have you tonight.
Thank you very much.
So a year on, we hear the Auditor General come out with these, and it doesn't seem to be changing at all. Every year we have some monies misapplied, misappropriated, sometimes stolen. It's not palatable at all.
Yes, that is true. Thank you very much. Well, that is the trend of the event. I mean, when you read the Auditor General's report and you see the frustration of the Auditor General for in giving reasons why most of these irregularities, the year in, year out, just to prepare. Remember, last 2 weeks, we took one of them, the pre-tertiary education, the motion on the floor of Parliament, where the Speaker have to even call that there's a need to act now because the thing is going beyond bounds or something like that. And I keep on, you remember the Auditor General said that the lack of all these continuing is lack of sanction, appropriate sanction on the officers who are responsible for these irregularities.
Right. So
what we need to do is, for me, however, we are talking too much. We must act to serve as a deterrent. If we cannot act as to punish people in accordance with the law or sanction them in accordance with the law, remember the FAR states that where a head of institution fails to sanction an officer who caused financial indiscipline, then that particular head of the institution should be sanctioned he or herself.
you want these persons involved sanctioned. Now, who has to do that? PAC, the whole house, or whose responsibility is this?
Yes, it's the responsibility of the head of the institution. For example, if we take any agency, let's say we are dealing with, let's say, Minister of Sports or Ghana Education Service or Minister of Health, and there's agency like GES. The GES have directors under the various section of GES. Now, if any of the finance officer or procurement officer anything violating of the law, it's the duty of that director to sanction the person according to the law. If that director fails, then it's the duty of the Director General of the GS himself or herself to sanction such fellow. And if that director of GS also fails, then it come back to the minister who he report to, who should make sure that the appropriate sanction is sanctioned on the line. So that's the way it should be done.
And so, but clearly from the line of sanctions that you've mentioned, it suggests that these persons are not doing their work.
And
then it comes to the public accounts.
Continue.
So it comes to the Public Accounts Committee. It sits and it reviews these discrepancies in the financing books of these institutions. Then what happens?
Yes, those that, when it comes to the Public Accounts Committee, when it lays to Parliament, we call those officers into public hearing. And at the public hearing, they are given the chance at least to substantiate those queries raised against them by the Auditor General. Some of them even come to pay the money before they appear. In fact, I can tell you that when we went for the pre-tertiary education and the district assemblies throughout the whole country, I quite remember for the pre-tertiary education, we were able to retrieve between, I think, Ashanti region and the northern region alone, not less than 2 to 3 million Ghana cedis on the spot, apart from those who come to refund the money and go on. Now, those which involve criminal activity, that's where the Auditor General comes in. Because that one should be referred to the Auditor General to carry the necessary, where there's enough evidence, there's a prosecution or something like that. But unfortunately, that is where the problem comes in, because the implementation of most of these recommendations are supposed to be carried out by the Auditor General, by the ARIC, that's the Auditor Report Implementation Committee. Now, the Audit Report Implementation Committee has a problem by its structure, because normally the head or the chairman of this institution are the same people that the queries are raised against them. So you are telling the person to be the referee and the player.
Okay. Let me quickly cite an example. In the Gambia, I know that when the Public Accounts Committee is sitting, the policemen already on standby and public officials who are seen at the sittings who have engaged in this malfeasance are immediately picked up by the police. It doesn't happen in Ghana.
Yes, even in the Uganda, that's the same thing. The Uganda,
Gambia, Uganda. Yes, it happens there.
Yeah, it happens there. It doesn't happen in Ghana. I would not agitate for it, because in the sense that sometimes when you do that, there's a tendency, let me put it that way, for political abuse or something like that. You know, when you go to the UK, in the UK, when the Public Accounts Committee sit down, they don't even call the minister, because they believe the minister is a policy maker. They call the chief directors and the directors who are implementing and who spend the money.
Right.
To come again. In the process, if you think that it's taking a directive from a minister, then you should call that minister to book. Like I was just hearing this evening about the later one they put where the Auditor General started, for example, the minister or the chief executive of the GDAS should be directly harassed for. On that aspect, then the minister can appear to come and answer for it, because he's not responsible for implementation, he's responsible for policy. How can he go to say, well, I will agitate for us that we should let our laws be more biting. There must, either we have to just America, that there must be a way of sanctions who fail to carry out the sanction when it appears to Parliament. There must be named individually that you are held responsible for this. And when they are named, and shame and they are punished accordingly, I think that will reduce a lot of the malfeasance we are getting in our audit report.
So you are suggesting that the issue of getting police officers on standby to pick away.
No, I will not go for that.
You will not go for that because
yes,
you think that
I think that Parliament has enough power if they really want to exercise it to be able to bring any minister, for that matter, any director into book. And Parliament will not want to go that far because of our system, which involves both the legislature and the executive becoming perhaps. I don't want to go there, but I think that Parliament has enough power. If they really need to exercise that power, if a director misbehaves, a minister can be called to book. No, Parliament has even a way of removing a minister. Though it's very difficult.
So then,
if it is put into test, it will let a lot of this be up.
So then it means that Parliament is simply not exercising its power, from what you've just told me.
Well, yes, because I learned it from most of my senior colleagues. Parliament has enough power, and I think if they really meant to exercise it, maybe because for political exigency or whatever you call it, but I believe that Parliament has enough power if they really want to exercise it. And even on prevention, right, like most of these things are post-mortem that we are doing because the public accounts go to post-mortem. But let's look at preemptive measures. We have the various committee, apart from public accounts, how many of the committees have ever sat in public hearing? Why can't the education committee sit public hearing on the Get Fund projects in the country every quarter and review what is going on all the agency and the Ministry of Education, and then be able to prevent any overrun of the budget even before it occurs? Why can't that happen?
Grateful to have you tonight. Ibrahim Day is a ranking member of Parliament's Public Accounts Committee. They're 10:30 in Elmina in the Central Region, and of course you're live watching News at 10. This is how we're wrapping up on the big one.